the most important contribution Mr. Fetullah's movement is doing right now, from my vantage point, is to bring peace not only to Turkey but to the world, and to bring an interaction of different nations and different people and different cultures. Conversations express not only education between My name is Gustavo Godoy. I'm originally from Cuba. I've been living in the United States since 1960. I have gone several times back to Cuba. As a matter of fact, we have an institution right now that is trying to create much more communications between Cubans that are out of Cuba and the Cubans that live in Cuba. There's some changes going on. It's going to take some time. I'm a journalist. I studied in New York at RCA Institutes and at New York University, journalism. So due to that fact, I think that my vision of journalism, specifically of television, it is different from other people that have not been in the other side of the United States. Miami is not the United States. It's a different ballgame altogether. I got to know the movement thanks to a trip that I did recently, a little bit over a year ago, to Turkey. We went to different points in Turkey. I was very much impressed as some of the same people that went on that tour about the movement, the places we went, the people that we saw, the effort to help other people in the country, how prosperous at that time Turkey was in different aspects, a very important example as far as a peaceful country, as a very energetic country, and of good relations between people from Turkey of different denominations. It seems that there's a little bit of a rift right now, for what I read in the news media lately in Turkey. For what I have seen in my trip specifically in my last trip, what I have seen and what I have heard, read, and found about Mr. Fethullah, it is at the right time, at the right place. I think it's a movement that is bringing communications among people, communications with the world, peaceful, educational, and it brings together people from many different points, from religions, from political thoughts, and everything. It is a cohesive movement, and that is going or doing the best thing for the nation right now and for the world. The most important contribution Mr. Fetullah's movement is doing right now, from my vantage point, is to bring peace not only to Turkey but to the world, and to bring an interaction of different nations and different people and different cultures. Because being the world that we are today, we need from everybody and to be in touch with everybody. Communications is essential for all countries. And I think that Mr. Fethullah was ahead of the game. He was ahead of the time in generating the Fethullah movement. From my vantage point, it represents Islam, on the opposite of what so many people in the world have had about Islam, about the changes that I've had. To me, Islam, of what I've known about Islam, it's a peaceful, community-oriented faith, but above all, it's peaceful. And other positions are the opposite. And I think this movement is creating a wonderful, wonderful future for not only for Turkey, but for the world. Mr. Gulen lives in the United States, and we also need it in here. We need to have more peace in here also. I think that the biggest difference between the movement, Gulen's movement, and other organizations, that it spreads not only to the Middle East, to Islamic countries, but to the world in general. It's a people-to-people engagement of knowing how to better their lives, how to communicate, and how to learn from other experiences of other faiths in other countries and other political situations. I think it is contrary to many other movements of this nature. I think it brings a togetherness in people, and it brings something that is badly needed, which is peace, because peace can only be obtained with education and communication. And when you have communication and education between different people, different faiths, different education, different languages, you are on the right road to peace in the world. Dialogue is priority number one. Dialogue of the movement is priority number one. If people do not communicate one with the other, if they don't know each other, if they don't know how they live, what are their aspirations, what are their limitations, we will continue to have, not only in Turkey but in the world, a very complex society. And more than a complex society, we would have a very aggressive society, because when people do not interconnect one with the other and know that we're all the same, we may speak different languages, we may have different views about faith, religion, etc. We can all learn from each other, and I think this is the right conduit of Mr. Gulen's movement to create that intercommunications between different peoples, different faiths. And I think that's the best thing that we can do right now. Hizmet's management on education is, I would like to emphasize that, I think it's priority number one. If there's no education, you have a very wild society. If you don't have intercommunications with certain aspects of people, different religions, different points of view, you are contributing to violence. This movement is contributing to communications, to engagement of people from different facets of the world. The activities of Hizmet, of people knowing people, of people to people, of health facilities in the world, of educational facilities, thanks to the Hizmet movement, I think it's bringing a better world. And it's not only considered to be a Turkish movement, it's a worldwide movement. And I think that brings people together, and bringing people together and having communications, thanks to the Hizmet movement, I think that the world is becoming a better world. It's educational, it's humanitarian. I mean, part of the movement has health facilities in countries and in areas, even in Turkey maybe, that do not have those facilities. There are many people that need those facilities. There are many people that need much more education. There are many people like at the border that we see and that we saw in our last trip to Turkey, hundreds, if not thousands of children, orphan children, that are receiving education, are receiving food, are receiving a future. That, to me, is the biggest thing that the movement is creating right now. Criticism is productive. The criticism of the movement, if it is self-selfish, if it's not needed, etc., it's lack of knowledge of what the movement is doing. I cannot tell you if the movement is creating also an image of what they have been doing. In English, we say ignorance is bliss. If you don't know what the movement is doing, then you're putting yourself in a situation whereby you're going to be the target of criticism. But the movement, I think people are getting to know about it. And what we saw in Turkey recently, the children, I was personally very touched. I'm sure that the group of people, when they were very, very touched, because some of those children were orphans for X number of reasons, with the war, whatever the situation may be. I mean, I'm not a refugee, but I have not lived in my country for 55 years. So I know what it is to be transplanted from your language, your lifestyle, your family, and be input. So I think when people criticize what Gulen is doing, whatever the movement is doing, I would venture to say is ignorance, due to fact of knowledge of what the movement and Mr. Gulen has been doing. Mr. Gulen has been, from my vantage point, there's an old saying in English, he put his wallet on his mouth. His wallet is where you put your money. Many people talk, 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 and do very little. Mr. Gulen's movement has been doing things to many people that is touching the future of the universe, specifically of Turkey.
I think the Hizmet movement represents the core and heart of Islam, in the sense that it promotes the notion of peace and the understanding of peace as central to our life together.
Fethullah Gulen is an imam that promotes freedom, promotes tolerance, promotes dialogue.